chapter 17, text 30. Patitam parayo viraha kripaya dinavatsalah saranyo navadit shlokya ahachedam hasaniva. Patitam, fallen, parayo, at the feet, Vidaha, the hero, Kripaya, out of compassion, Dinavatsalah, kind to the poor, Saranya, one who is qualified to accept surrender. Not Avadit, did kill. Slokya, one who is worthy of being sung. Aha, said. Cha, also. Idam, this. Hasan, smiling. Iva, like. Translation. Maharaj Parikshit, who was qualified to accept surrender and worthy of being sung in history, did not kill the poor surrendered and fallen Kali, but smiled compassionately, for he was kind to the poor. Translation, please repeat. Maharaj Parikshit, who was qualified to accept surrender and worthy of being sung in history, did not kill the poor surrendered and fallen Kali, but smiled compassionately, for he was kind to the poor. Purport. Even an ordinary Kshatriya does not kill a surrendered person, and what to speak of Maharaj Parikshit, who was by nature compassionate and kind to the poor. He was smiling because the artificially dressed Kali had disclosed his identity as a lower class man, and he was thinking how ironic it was that although no one was saved from his sharp sword when he desired to kill, the poor lower class Kali was spared by his timely surrender. Maharaj Parikshit's glory and kindness are therefore sung in history. He was a kind and compassionate emperor, fully worthy of accepting surrender even from his enemy. Thus the personality of Kali was saved by the will of Providence. Patitam parayo viraha gripaya dinavatsalah saranyo navedit shlokya ahachedam hasan iva. Maharaj Parikshit, who was qualified to accept surrender and worthy of being sung in history, did not kill the poor surrendered and fallen Kali, but smiled compassionately, for he was kind to the poor. So continuing on, the story of the personality of Kali and beating the legs of the cow and the bull. We were saying the other morning, this is very symbolic, but also this event happened in history. And then, of course, Maharaj Parikshit coming upon the scene, and immediately he saw, because he knew what the city, as I was saying the other morning, he is trained. These leaders, Kshatriyas, especially the future kings, they were trained. Kings and queens, they're all trained. The princesses are all trained in so many different ways. We read in Mahabharata how the Pandavas were trained. In the next verse, Maharaj Parikshit actually refers to himself as a descendant of Arjuna, a very famous line and a great reputation to uphold. Now, it also, Prabhupada makes reference to that the Pandavas very much saw themselves as representatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. put it on silent mode. All phones on silent. So, representatives. So they very much saw themselves as representatives of the Supreme Personality of God. Not that they were lords and masters. This is, in the Bhagavad Gita, in one purport, in the later chapters of Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada mentions the weakness of heart. One of these weaknesses of heart is that to think that you're the Lord and Master, controller of so many others. Another weakness is to just build up all your possessions and assets and so on. It's a weakness of heart, because actually it's not your natural position. Just like the heart, in natural position is strong, but when it's weak, so when we see ourselves as representatives, as devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and doing our service on His behalf, then we're in a strong position. We're in a strong position. I remember Prabhupada one time. Someone, this was in Melbourne. Someone, somebody brought in the Aquarian Gospel and showed Prabhupada. Said, Prabhupada, in there it says that, it talks about Jesus Christ and how he believed in reincarnation, and he was going on and on about what was in the Aquarian Gospel. And so what do you think? This is, that this is something that's very, that we can present to the Christians. And Prabhupada said, well, maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. We don't know exactly. So to present it, because this is a God, we don't know what is the history of all that, whether someone added it or whether it's actually factual. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But we stick to solid shastras, just like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. Then he said, then we're on the solid ground. So similarly, when we present ourselves as representatives and we act in such a way and we see ourselves as representatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then of course, if we see ourselves as representatives, then how do we have to function as representatives? And so Maharaj Parikshit makes reference to that. This is a great lineage. The Pandavas, Arjuna, Yudhisthira Maharaj, these are great kings. I'm in that line. There's a reputation. Now the Kshatriyas very much valued their reputation. In one sense, they didn't care because they were devotees, but on the other side, they did care because they had to, along with their individual positions, they had to rule the kingdom. So if the reputation was good, people would respect that. You see, when your reputation is gone, and then people don't respect you, then it's very hard to do anything. People won't listen to you, won't give you much. So Arjuna makes reference to that also. And then he didn't want to fight. Better to die than live in infamy. So it was very important for the Kshatriyas. And those who actually elevated Kshatriyas, those who were Raj Rishis, devotee kings, not that they were personally attached to it, but it was a means to be able to do their service. So therefore, Maharaj Parikshit made reference to it. We come in a great line. It's a great heritage. So we have to act accordingly. We don't want to blemish and tarnish the reputation of the lineage. It does disservice to their fathers and forefathers and the whole line. Everything is good. They're very exemplary. They were great Raj Rishis, and then you do something to spoil the whole thing. It's a disservice to them. It's a disservice to whoever you're dealing with. It's a disservice to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, and Prabhupada used to say that to us as his disciples from time to time. He said that, when you act, please keep in mind that you are known as the disciples you're known as my disciples, of the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So, when you interact, just be mindful that it reflects on me. It reflects on me because you're my disciple, you're a devotee, and also reflects on Krishna. You are devotees of Krishna, and if you do something bad, it just reflects badly. That's not very good. Because we're trying to spread Krishna consciousness. Of course, some people are just envious, no matter what you do, what you say, even if you act properly, they're just kind of, some people, what can you do about that? But as far as possible, we have to be thinking along, well, and Prabhupada used to remind us, remember, you reflect, whatever you do reflects on me. And we were just saying the other morning about, was it the other morning? Maybe I was giving another class online about there was an occurrence where the editors or the devotees at Back to Godhead had put an article in about the pastime of Vallabhacharya. I think I mentioned this the other morning. Huh? Did I mention it? Oh, yeah. And and how Vallabhacharya was presented his commentary on the Bhagavatam, and he criticized Sridhar Swami, who was one of the original commentators on the Bhagavatam. He said that I don't think that Sridhar Swami has presented it very nicely, but Lord Chaitanya was upset about Vallabhacharya saying that about Sridhar Swami, and he detected some pride in Vallabhacharya for saying something like that. All right, well, you've done a commentary, but then you're criticizing one of the original commentators as if you're higher than him. You shouldn't do that. We should always respect the predecessor acharyas, and whatever their position, we should respect it. We may be erudite, we may be scholarly, we may have all sorts of academic qualifications, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're advanced spiritually. We have to keep that in mind. We may be materially qualified. Material qualification doesn't necessarily equate to spiritual advancement. So therefore, the spiritual master, one of his duty is to teach disciples how to be humble. How to be humble. Lord Jesus said the same thing, the meek shall inherit the earth. The meek, be humble. Because now we're puffed up to varying degrees, all of us. We've all got our pride. Even over the smallest things, over insignificant things, we're very proud. And that's why all these things we do are designed by our guru and the acharyas. We come in the morning, we pay our obeisances. This is making, we may not feel like it, but it's imprinted that we humble ourselves. I remember when I was first coming to the temple, I brought a friend of mine, he brought his girlfriend. So then, I took them in for the Sunday program, and I'd been coming for some time. So I took them in, and then at the end, I said, well, what did you think? And they said, oh, nice. The food was nice, everything was nice. But the girlfriend said, I don't know, all this bowing down. This bowing down all the time. I don't know about that. It's too much. It's too much. So, I had to explain because I had a little bit of understanding. I said, well, this is to make us humble, just like that. When we go in the Guru Puja is an opportunity every day. We go before the Guru. Not that Krishna needs our bowing down or Prabhupada needs us to bow down, but it's training to be humble, because actually we've got that pride. And that pride's going to block us. That pride is going to block our advancement. You know so many things already. So Prabhupada, he talks about that. One has to develop tolerance, one has to develop patience, one has to develop humility. So for the Guru Puja, we can offer the flower and we bow down, we offer our obeisance. And we beg for forgiveness for any offences, knowingly or unknowingly. There's an opportunity at the Guru Puja time every day, and every day we do it. So we do it every day. And why do we need to do it every day? Why do we need to come into the temple, we pay our obeisance, we're doing it all the time? Can't we just do it once in a day? Can't we just do it in the morning? Well, our condition is very ingrained. We've had many lifetimes of being puffed up. And so it needs a regularized type of effort, even externally. externally, and along with the chanting and everything, and internally we're going to be purified. So simultaneously, all these external things, although ultimately they have nothing to do with ourselves as souls, but still they affect us, affect our consciousness, and so therefore the acharyas and the shastras give all these things as guidelines. Do these things. You're not on the level of a perfected devotee yet. And you still revert back to your former conditioning and your thoughts, the patterns and your material consciousness. So, and that's very ingrained over many lives. So therefore do these external things along with your, a process of chanting and all, and to do all these things and do them regularly. So we're in a situation like that. Just like if someone is sick, they go to the doctor, take the medicine. The doctor doesn't say, just take it once. No, you've got to follow the course. You've got to take it over the next 6 weeks or not, or whatever. Sometimes they give you, if you're really sick and some very serious condition, you have to take this medication for the rest of your life. They say like that, isn't it? If your condition is very serious, you have to take the whole. Take it. You're going to have to take this your whole life. So our position is like that. How conditioned we are. We have to do these things our whole life. Even those who've been devotees a long time, even the perfected devotees, they do it just to show by the example that it should be done. So Parikshit Maharaj was very much aware of all these things. He was trained, as I said, and he was very qualified. Very, very qualified. He was qualified to accept. Now, here it is mentioned that, where does it say? Qualified and worthy of being sung in history, the glories. His glory. Where is the glories? And the word glories is used for petitum. No, maybe I'm thinking of another word. Worthy, slokya, qualified, saranya, qualified to accept the surrender, and he is glorified. Maybe Prabhupada mentioned it in the purport. Anyway, there was some. Oh yeah, Maharaj Parikshit's glory. Maharaj Parikshit's glory and kindness are therefore sung in history. So glory. Now, glory is usually used. That term is usually used when. In a religious way, in a spiritual way. It can be used in other ways, but generally it's used when someone has achieved notable results in their activities. Notable results in their activities. And in the spiritual sense, they have notable qualifications, they're great achievements, and therefore they're glorious. All glories. All glories. You are a very qualified person. So Maharaj Parikshit was like that, and Prabhupada says here in the verse it is said he was very qualified and he was glorious. And it wasn't just someone saying, just sometimes we praise people to get something off them. It was actually the situation of Maharaj Parikshit. He came in a great line. All the Yudhisthira Maharaj, the Pandavas, all going right back, Maharaj Kuru, and going right back, and the whole Kuru dynasty, very glorious. So glorious. So Maharaj Parikshit was very glorious, trained from seen Krishna even before he was born, always was a devotee right throughout the whole life, and he had rishi qualities. Along with being trained as a kshatriya, he had rishi. Rishi means he was a great devotee. So in the Bhagavad Gita there's mention of the qualities of Soryam, Tej, Yudhiti Daksham, Yudi Chapapyalayanam, Dhanam, Ishvara Bhavat, Chatram Kamas, Svabhavat. So generally the Kshatriyas needed these types of qualities, and they by naturally they had them. Heroism. They're actually heroes. They're not afraid. Their fear is way in the back as far as Kshatriyas. Now Prabhupada actually comments that in the former times, of course, if there was some threat, if there was some attack, the monarchs would go out to protect the country and the citizens along with their armies. He made a point like that they would go out in that way. They would be in the front lines. And they were very heroic. They were very courageous, determined. But they actually had power. Describing this, the other morning. They actually were powerful, very strong, powerful, learned in so many skills, and so on and so forth. Resourceful, courage in battle, as I mentioned here, and generosity, also leadership. So these qualities are there in the Kshatriyas, are just like, and by nature. So someone who hasn't actually naturally got these qualities shouldn't dress themselves as a Kshatriya or pose themselves as a king, so on and so forth. So these are qualities of now mentioned also here qualities of the Brahmanas, Samo, Damastapasot, Cham, Chanti, Ajam, Evacha, Gana, Vigana, Astakam, Brahmakamas, Vapavajam. Peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, religiousness, so on. So kings like Maharaj Parikshit had both these qualities. They had the Kshatriya qualities and they had the Rishi qualities because they were devotees. They had the Brahmana qualities and they had Vaishnava qualities. So they had all these things. They actually, on another side to them, they were very peaceful. But they, as far as doing their duty, they couldn't always just be peaceful. Just like Krishna told Arjuna, that when he saw Bhishma Dev and Dronacharya, he didn't want to fight anymore. And he wanted to go away from the battlefield. But Krishna said, no, now's not the time to exercise this. Now they've come to attack. Whether you fight or not, they're going to attack. You are needed. So you can't. So you need to know when to display these qualities, when to manifest, when to use them in service, and so on and so forth. So the Kshatriyas were very trained like that, and the Raj Rishis like Maharaj Parikshit had all sorts of wonderful qualities, and they had so many achievements. So they were very glorious, and they were trained, in ruling. They were trained in dealing with friends. They were trained in how to treat a friend. These are all Dharma Shastras in the Manu Samhita and other Shastras. How the king and how a Kshatriya should lead and how we should deal with people. How we should deal. And amazingly enough, I've read many of these things where the exact descriptions are given. Someone who's like that, this is how you deal with them. Someone who's like that, this is how you do it. Someone who surrenders, this is how you deal with them. So it wasn't just, Maharaj Parikshit had naturally, because he was a Rishi and a devotee, he was naturally compassionate, but at the same time he had his training. All right, Kali surrendered, and he surrendered immediately. This was another consideration. He surrendered immediately. He didn't attack and got beaten down and was forced to surrender. Oh, now I surrender. that would be another consideration, right? So sometimes someone foolishly desires to go up against a far superior opponent and gets beaten down to a pulp, and then when he's got nothing left, oh, I surrender. And even the more foolish ones, I surrender, and then when the guy's not looking, then they attack again. So you get foolish people like that. So that would be another consideration. So the Kshatriyas were trained on all the levels. Okay, someone who surrenders immediately, how should I treat them? Someone surrenders after I have to beat him into submission. That's another consideration. Someone who doesn't surrender at all, who goes on, then they're dealt with like this, and they're dealt with like that. So my point is, there's Dharma Shastras that describe that kings were trained in. All right, this is how you deal with it. Someone's like this, someone's like that. This is how you deal with it, and it's a very exhausting training. Because, just to read it's very exhausting. I've read some of these descriptions, how to deal with a different personality, how to deal with your ministers, how to deal with the government employees. They were trained. And if they did like this, then you did like that. If they said like this, then you said like that. It was training. So, I don't think the leaders have that level of training these days. Of course, people get trained in their work practices to a certain degree. But it's a kind of man-made kind of system that it has many mistakes. This training comes from trained in the lineage, trained through the Shastras, and not only that, they have advisors, they have Brahminical advisors, just in case there's some confusion, all right, then they go to the Brahmin advisors, all right, then they get advice as well. So actually, one of the instructions of Bhishma Dev to Yudhisthira Maharaj, he said that for a king, for a monarch, is that don't it's only in emergency situations where you take a decision in isolation by yourself. Right? You know, like on the spot, just like Maharaj Parikshit had to do on the spot here, you know, because Kali. But it had never come to a decision by yourself. Always take advice of many others, especially, and that will be more according to the seriousness of the position. And so they were trained in all that. Okay, this situation, is this serious? This situation is very serious. So therefore I need to get the advice. So all this was a very, very intricate training. And so he had the qualities, Maharaj Parikshit had the qualities, he had the training, he was qualified to accept the surrender. He was qualified in his qualities, a noble person and compassionate, just naturally compassionate, but he was qualified also in the Dharma Shastras in that he knew how to accept the surrender and what to do about that. When someone surrendered, just like Kali, what to do, and we'll read on how Maharaj Parikshit deals with Kali. So his praises are worthy of being sung in history. Now we know today that there are so many people praised in history, but you know, so many songs around where, you know, people sing about, or people write about this one, that one, and the other one. But what is their actual position? Are they worthy to get so much heaps of praise? So someone who's praiseworthy, that's another point to consider that is made here. Someone needs to be praiseworthy. So it's not just out of some feeling you want to praise someone and put them, you know, praise them on a higher level and encourage others to do the same thing, because sometimes you'll be disappointed that you praise them and then later on it comes out that, oh well, actually they weren't so good after all and we didn't know about that. So, but you know, so someone has to be praiseworthy. So these great Kshatriyas, these great Acharyas, certainly the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is worthy of praise. His position is tutor and infallible and just a perfected personality of Godhead. So therefore, these personalities are spoken about, and like Maharaj Parikshit, Arjuna, great devotees and so on. The stories are here in Srimad Bhagavatam. Even thousands and thousands, and some of these stories are millions of years old, and still their glories are sung and their praises are repeated over and over again. So therefore he did not kill the poor, surrendered and fallen Kali. He was kind and compassionate, and then Prabhupada actually finishes by saying that the personality of Kali was saved by the will of providence. So over and above all this, over and above Maharaj Parikshit's qualifications and his glories and his training and how he dealt with it, the will of the Supreme Providence means, generally providence means that the will of God. The will over and above all this. So Maharaj Parikshit was now the will of providence. Now, the will of providence was working here on all levels. And Krishna can influence someone within their heart to act in a certain way. So the will of providence. So not only Maharaj Parikshit was naturally reacting to the situation, he was influenced from within by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to act in that way. And Kali was also influenced. The whole scene was influenced by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and later on Kali is designated certain places. That is also by the will of providence. Because Kali has to happen, that this Kali Yuga has to happen. It's one of the ages for as I said the other morning, because some living entities, their desires are so gross, They're so gross, they can't be in the other ages. They don't fit in there. They have to come in an age where the age is gross. So this is the Kali. So the Kali has to be there. So all this is going on under the influence of the Supreme Personality. So Kali was saved. Now, it could have been that the personality of Kali, Maharaj Parikshit just took out his sword and lopped off his head, and that was the end of the personality of Kali. Could have been. Right? And therefore, the whole Kali Yuga, Kali is very actively working to influence so many people to act very sinfully. And Kali Yuga's gone, he's killed. Parikshit killed him. Right? Parikshit killed him. It's all over. We're back in Satya Yuga. But no, he didn't. And part of it was his training, and the other part was the will of providence. That actually the Supreme Personality of God didn't want that Kali should be killed. Nor should it be done. And when someone surrendered to you, you have to accept. That's just compassion. Certainly the duty of Kshatriyas, that's just compassion, that's kindness, and so on and so forth. You can't, if someone is offering that and begging for forgiveness, of course one has to be genuine, it has to be seen. Sometimes it has to be seen over time. Please forgive me, and then 5 minutes later you're doing the same thing. No, that's not very good. That's not very sincere. So please forgive me. I always remember one time in Melbourne, a long time ago when I was the temple president, there was two devotees, two brahmacharis were having a big argument. And arguing, I can't even remember what it was about now from so long ago. Anyway, so, one had said some, heavy things against the other one. So he came to me and he said, I don't feel very good. I said, well, you go and apologise, And then, so he went. And then he came back and I said, so how did it go? Did you apologise? He said, yes. But the other devotee said, no, I'm not accepting your apology. I said, well, that's not good on his side either. If someone's actually genuine, you should accept it. Be gracious and accept it. Maybe I told him, now wait a while till he calms down a bit. If someone's very angry, it's probably not the best time to go there. But wait till the situation calms down and go and apologise. And so then I had to go talk to the other one also. And so, there are Vaishnava qualities that we may not have so much at the moment, but Vaishnava qualities we should aspire at least to have. And we may not feel like it. I mean, if we lived our lives according to how we felt all the time, who knows what our lives would be like, right? So we can't just go by our feelings, our emotions all the time. Certain things are okay, but we have to be guided in a higher way as well. For example, a big huge feast comes out and there's so many gulab jamuns. I feel like eating all those gulab jamuns, right? There's 30 gulab jamuns that somehow or other all the devotees have missed, and they're just there. So I feel like eating them all, so I'm going to eat them all. So if you eat them all, you're going to get sick. So this is just an example. If you do everything you feel like doing all the time, that doesn't mean it's going to be helpful. So you have to be guided in a higher way. This is very, very important. So Maharaj Parikshit accepted the surrender of in many cases we see around the world that someone has surrendered, and just like I believe that this big whole protest in America over this person that was killed by the police or something, that he actually surrendered, but they kept the policeman still was on his neck or something like that, wasn't it? So the man was actually fully cooperating, and so that's not what to do. So understandably people are very upset. So if someone actually surrenders, then you have to act according. But no one's got the proper training. They've got some training, but there's no proper training as far as the Shastras, as far as guidance from the Acharyas and getting advice from so many senior Vaishnavas and so on and so forth. So this is another thing to consider, that Maharaj Parikshit didn't kill him because it was his qualities and also the will of providence, that all this whole thing, the whole situation was arranged by Krishna because he wanted to show so many things. When Krishna arranges something, then so many things are accomplished. And sometimes, we have to, ourselves as devotees, we may have our plans for doing service, and they may be very wonderful plans, and other devotees agree with you, but somehow or other it doesn't come about, and we have to understand maybe this is not what the Supreme Personality of Godhead wants. Although, your plan is, in a small way, is all right, Krishna has got a bigger plan that it doesn't line up with your smaller plan. But sometimes it can be like that. So we have to expect. In other words, we can't be we're attached to doing the service, but we can't be attached to the result. The living entity has the right to do his duty, but don't be attached to the results. The results are up to Krishna, and leave the results to Krishna. If we're attached to the results, we'll be happy sometimes, we'll be miserable other times, and when the result comes, we're all happy. And this is like the materialistic life. They're very attached to the result, they work in such a way, they get they're all happy, and then when it doesn't come about, they're all miserable. So you just do your duty, do your service, and whatever the result is up to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's something to aspire to. Of course, we may not be immediately on that level because we're beginning devotees or intermediate devotees. We're not on the high levels, but at least we know what our attitude should be and what our goal should be as far as our attitude and our actions. So Hare Krishna, thank you very much. I'll read this verse again. Patitam parayo vira kripaya dinabatsalaha saranyo navijit shlokya ahachenam ahasan iva. Maharaj Parikshit, who was qualified to accept surrender and worthy of being sung in history, did not kill the poor, surrendered and fallen Kali, but smiled compassionately, for he was kind to the poor. Any questions or comments? Yes, sir. Manibanda.
So now we know we have the four Yuga avatars, and we're always hearing about the personality of Kali. Can you mention the personality of the other three Yugas?
I've never read about the personality of that. There are personalities, but I know, I think I mentioned the other morning that in the Purana there's mentioned that he was one of the sons of Kashyapa Muni, or he is one of the sons of Kashyapa Muni by his wife Muni, that's Kali. But I've never read about the other personalities. I know there are personalities, but the personality of Satya and the personality that's in the Shastra, but they're actually naming them and their lineage and all that, I haven't read. That's probably available somewhere, but I haven't personally read it.
Just one way, it seems to be a lot of emphasis is placed on the personality of Kali specifically. While there's a lot of mention about him, but none of the others, whether there's any reason.
Well, he seems to be very active in these nefarious activities. So therefore he's worthy of special mention. In the other ages, now there's some mention of Duryodhana having some connection with a personality of Dwapa, so I can't remember just off the top of my head. I remember some connection between Duryodhana and the personality of Dwapa, but anyway, that's my reasoning on that. Why he's mentioned so much. At least in this particular section, and the personality of Kali is very active, and he's still active now. So, and also we've got to be more on guard against the effects of his activity. So therefore, special emphasis is given to him. That's my take on it. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
At the beginning you mentioned how Bhattacharya was criticizing Sridhar Swami's commentary on the Bhagavatam?
On the Bhagavatam, yes.
So I was just wondering, I have a little bit controversial question.
Sorry, say again?
Controversial question. Is that okay if I ask?
About the parampara.
No, about the fact that, for example, Prabhupada's books are being corrected sometimes.
Oh, that, yeah.
So that would be indirectly like saying, yeah, he didn't do a good job, we're going to do a better job. But sometimes I understand the need of some things. But from my reading, comparing the Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam that Prabhupada did when he was alive and now, sometimes the corrections I find unnecessary and sometimes they're even worse than the, you know what I mean? So
Well, this has been an ongoing discussion for decades, you know, and the BBT editors have explained their position that actually, you know, the original, the early editors changed a lot of what Prabhupada presented, and therefore they're changing it back. There's different levels of it, you know. There's the grammatical corrections, which Prabhupada specifically said you have to do that because English was not his first language. So you have to do that. We can't be seen in a bad light because of the grammar and the way things flow in as far as that. He specifically gave them instruction, you have to do that. And as far as other corrections, and they explain that, look, we're going back to Prabhupada's original commentary. When Hayagriva, for example, did the editing for Bhagavad Gita, he did a lot of things that were not directly what Prabhupada said. Although Prabhupada did use it, but the editors say that they've taken it back to more with the original how Prabhupada presented it. Some things are felt to be a little unnecessary, and the GBC has had actually a meeting with the BBT trustees last October in where were we? We were in Tirupati, and so there was a big discussion. And now there's the editorial board has been expanded to go through all that type of thing. So more devotees are involved in the edits, you know, as far as Prabhupada's books are concerned. So we are addressing it. It is an ongoing discussion. We plan to have more meetings, but they have their points, and they're quite. There is material available that gives the explanation from the BBT editor's side of things. I don't know if you ever read that. It's a big long document that explains that they sent out some time ago why they're doing it and what Prabhupada actually instructed to them to do. So they're not just doing whimsically. They are quoting from what Prabhupada said for them to do. But anyway, some have some problem that they may be perhaps going a little too far in some not in all circumstances, but in some circumstances. No, that's no problem.
So basically, all the changes that they're doing is they are justifying that in the sense that Prabhupada wanted those changes. So they are
grammatically, he wanted. Yeah.
No, I'm not talking about
Yeah. No, they're not changing. They're not changing. You need to read this. Maybe someone can send it to you, and the BBT has actually given a big long explanation of the rationale. And the main thing is they're going back to Prabhupada's original, and it was changed from the original to, you know, what was presented later on. So they said, well, we're just going back. So we felt that Hayagriva, for example, as one of the editors, went too far, and so we're going back to how Prabhupada originally presented it. But some are objecting to that even, that why Prabhupada used the Bhagavad Gita. And you know, I made that point when one of the questions I asked. Well, all right, that may be okay. You may say that you're going back to, but then again, Prabhupada did use the Gita. He lectured from it. The one that was, you know, so there's ongoing discussion. It's an ongoing discussion. Yes.
Just a question on the weakness of heart. You mentioned switch it on. Switch it on. Switch it on.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. Just a question on the weakness of heart. You mentioned accumulation of many things that can be a position of weakness in the heart. Perhaps you're needing so much just to make yourself feel secure or something.
Well, he specifically mentions the two weaknesses of heart in his purport. As I said, one is the lording and over propensity. It's a weakness. It's not the reality. It's actually a weakness. Although it appears a strength, Lord, but actually it's futile because you're not a Lord and Master. So therefore that's a weakness. The other weakness is accumulating more and more. That tendency to accumulate is actually a weakness of heart. You should just take whatever's necessary. But the tendency to get more and more and more and more, that's a weakness. It may seem a strength, but actually it's a weakness.
So you did talk about strength, one who more or less fixed in the service and humbly performing it as a position of strength.
That's actually strength.
Where does that strength come from? Your own? Does it come from the parampara, recognising that humble service, or where does that strength come from?
Well, the strength, it's a combination. The strength, you will be empowered. When the Lord sees your sincerity, He'll empower you to advance more and give you that strength to He'll empower. And simultaneously, you yourself, due to your conviction and determination and your tapasya in doing that, you yourself will be strengthened by your effort in that regard. So it's a combination of both. A combination that the Lord will help you and strengthen, and you yourself will be strengthened. So it's strange though, because a position of humility and tolerance, these are considered spiritually as strength positions. But for the materialists, they're considered weaknesses. Someone humble and gentle, come and tread on them.
Hardly recognise it.
Yeah, they're not at all. Be humble, be gentle. These things are not taught. They're considered a weakness. Of course, someone can be like that and be weak. But we're talking about spiritual humility and spiritual. These are great strengths, and they're not weaknesses at all. They're very, very, very great strengths. So it's something that the materialists really don't understand. Only the ones who are on the path of spiritual trying to achieve these things and actually achieving these qualities gradually, they can understand what that means by their experience of it. So it is when...
Maharaj, excuse me, is wanting to achieve that state and feels that they've also got attachment to whatever, like things that are inhibiting gaining that strength and humility. The process would be what to do if you wanted to achieve that. But he knew they were there, but yet the attachment for those things is still there. So
yeah. Well, it's a gradual process, and the acharyas give explanations how one can practice humility. For example, in Bhagavatam it says, if you want to practice humility, always try to engage in serving the Vaishnavas. Always, instead of taking service, render service. Of course, the exchange of loving exchanges is to receive and give also. But if you want to, develop your humility more and more, especially very advanced Vaishnavas, and then you get their association. So practice serving the devotees. We have that sort of mentality. We want to take everyone else's service and not give anything to anyone. But the opposite should be practiced if you want to actually develop humility. So it's through service. Through service, you'll develop humility, and also through service you'll develop attachment. That's because it's through the service, that attachment. Through service to the material world, you'll develop attachment to through service. Service to the spiritual is the moksha dvara, opens the gate to liberation. Service to the material is the greatest entanglement of the living entity. So it's a question of shifting the service. We're serving something, just shift it to... but one has to have the desire to do that, and the desire will be fanned by association. All these things are concomitant factors, elements. So association, and then gradually the desire becomes stronger, and then through the stronger desire then you will do other things and so on. But it's a gradual process, but we have to persevere on the path.
I just thought it's interesting that Krishna refers to humility and pridelessness.
Yeah,
Krishna refers to humility and pridelessness
Oh.
in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the verse 8 to 12. He doesn't refer to them as qualities, he refers them as a process of knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
Which means if you want to understand something, you adopt this process of knowledge. I mean, it can be
Well, it's both. The descriptions are there in both. They are qualities and they can be elements of knowledge, yeah. So the point is being that...
Well, by adopting the position of being humble, one acquires knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
Krishna says in the 8th to 12 text of the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he describes humility, tolerance, pridelessness, the perception of evil, birth, death, all that disease, detachment from home, children, etc. And for approaching a bona fide spiritual master, he describes all this as being not qualities, but processes of knowledge.
I wouldn't say not qualities, but they are simultaneously both. They are qualities of certainly qualities of the Vaishnava, and their process for attaining the position of knowledge. Because actually, to attain any level of advancement, one needs to be favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's by the mercy of the Lord, the knowledge comes. When he sees the sincerity in the devotee, he bestows upon that entity more and more knowledge, more and more enlightenment, more and more affection and love. And Krishna, because actually by ourselves, to achieve these levels are not possible in isolation by itself. One needs the mercy of the Supreme Personality. So when he sees you're sincere and you're genuine and you're trying, even though you're not very developed in it, Krishna will help you in achieving. So yes, you will get that knowledge. So they're both the process and a level of attaining the knowledge, and also nice qualities as well. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.